Can everybody hear me? Excellent. Please take notice that action will be taken on the following items at the regular council meeting on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, in the council chambers of Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The meeting is called to order at 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 6, 2023, by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of this notice. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Blumetti.
Here.
Mayor Chiarello.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Neil Clark.
Here.
Councilman Josh Ritzberg.
Here.
Councilwoman Christine Quinn. Here.
Excellent. Will you please join me as we salute our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have. May I have a motion to approve the November 22, 2022 regular meeting minutes as presented? And before I do, I will suggest that Councilman Blumetti and Deputy Mayor Clark abstain, as they were not sworn in at that time.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstain?
Abstain. Abstain.
Motion carried. Thank you. Will the acting town manager please read the manager's report for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will. First off, I'd like to introduce tonight for the first time here. Unfortunately, we didn't get it at the reorg meeting, but Chief Jeff McCarrick of the Police Department and Lieutenant Adam Carberry, both promotions that we got the first time. Okay, just a reminder, 2023 dog and cat license renewal are ongoing now. You have till the end of February to renew without getting a late penalty. After that time, there will be a late penalty assessed to anybody that is delinquent. And the rabies clinic is scheduled for April 22nd. And I believe that usually is at our DPW. We'll confirm that before then, but. Public Works Department, the 2023 Christmas tree collection started on Wednesday, January 3rd. Residents can put their trees along the curb, but off the street to be collected. Residents must place their trees out no later than January 16th. Trees put out later than that date will not be picked up by the township, but can be dropped off at Sussex County Municipal Utilities Authority. The 2022 leaf bag pickup program was completed on December 2nd. However, crews are still picking up leaf bags if employees notice them while they're out on a road detail. Residents after January 1st need to dispose of the leaves at SCUMA. There were 6 storm events during the month of December. Our crews were out and stayed busy maintaining safety of the roads, parking lots, and treating and plowing and removing all storm debris. Salt continues to be delivered and stored at the Public Works facility and readily available for the upcoming winter months. Our Building and Grounds Department assisted in the dispatch center relocation, temporary relocation and upgrade project in the police station. We now have the state-of-the-art facility in our communications center, and it looks really good. I'm very happy with the way it came out. The Public Works has installed a vehicle impound yard for our police department located at the DPW complex on Prices Switch. This past Friday, Public Works had received a new full-size snow fighter dump truck. This has been on order for several months. The Recreation Department has been working on the winter registration and which will open on December 14th. Many of the programs are filling up. All winter programs will begin within the first and second weeks of January. Senior Citizen New Year's Eve party was held on Thursday, December 29th, with 85 participants. Event was very well received. The department is getting ready for the return of the Winter Carnival on February 4th. Many of the groups who have participated in the past are returning. The Parks Department is working on new picnic benches and player benches, and are doing. They will be doing the work in the Glen with more tree maintenance and preparing new area that we have purchased so that people can have access to the lower Glen. Building Department processed 2,628 permits and updates. Collectively, we performed 6,390 inspections. Total fees collected for the year were in the amount of $661,478. As of the first week of the new permit applications have been going steady. The police department has successfully had a successful toy drive in which they donated the toys and collected Benny's Bodega in Newton, and on Saturday, December 17th, thank you all who donated. We'd like to also thank the Chambers family for their generous donation to our department of 7 light fax systems. This is a great tool that our officers can use on patrol and help anyone that is choking and removing a blocked airway. The Sparta Township Police Department increased patrols during December, and the beginning of January, these added patrols were funded by the DDEF grant monies. Patrols were extremely active in enforcement during these shifts and resulting in the following of 9 arrests for DWI. Sparta Office of Emergency Management is constantly monitoring the forecast for extreme weather. Go-to and warming summers will be open if needed. Residents are encouraged to visit the police department at any time or our Sparta Library during operating hours to warm up and charge devices. We will continue to post on social media platforms safety tips and on space heaters and usage, and caution on ice skating and use of the lakes, and other important weather-related safety tips. Our dispatch center has been under renovation for the past month. Renovations included new furniture, new radio consoles with collaboration of our vendor, PMC IT, support staff, Joe Kaliusif and David Drew, along with DPW employees, Gene Donnelly and Gunnar Batty, have worked extremely hard to get the project near completion. The dispatch center is scheduled to be up and running, actually was up and running today. They're moving all the equipment back. The department is extremely excited for this much-needed upgrade to provide the best services possible to our community and partner with all the agencies we provide dispatching services for. The project was funded through the fiscal year 2023 Community Project Funding Grant from the U.S. Congressional District. Sparta Township was awarded $306,000 from this grant application. The Police Department would like to invite members of the council and all agencies that utilize our dispatching service to tour in the near future. The Sparta's Junior Women's Club Giving Tree collected Christmas gifts for the children throughout Sussex County. The Sparta Library was used to collect many of the carloads of gifts. This annual event continues to be a great program. The library donated $1,929.30 to the Ecumenical Food Pantry, which was fine money, which was collected in December. Last year, we collected $1,655. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Sam. May I have a motion to approve the manager's report?
I move that we approve the manager's report as submitted.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion's passed, or the manager's report is approved. Thank you. We will now move on to our first open agenda item that is open to the public for anything that is not on the agenda. So it's something that's not on, we're limited to the items that are not on the agenda. Yes, please.
Hi, Sally Larson, 56 Mountain Spring Drive, Sparta. I've asked this question before, but I know SRD is here streaming the meeting. I would think it would be helpful if the town would begin to do that. We have very long commutes in this county, and a lot of people can't get here in a timely manner, especially if they have young children. So I think it would be great if we could stream the meetings or maybe even make them hybrid Zoom meetings like we can do from the library.
Yeah, and thank you. I certainly agree with that sentiment, and we will revisit that sometime early this year. I'm planning on having an open session, or at least an open discussion for the public in case somebody wants to lend any good ideas for promoting transparency and ease of access in that way. But that is certainly among the things we're going to consider. Expect an agenda item to have a discussion on that probably sometime in February. Thank you. Yes, please.
Good evening, Jeff McCarran, Chief of Police, along with Lieutenant Adam Carberry, Sparta Township. I just want to take a moment to welcome back our council members from last year, Mayor Chiarello, Councilman Hertzberg, and Councilwoman Quinn, along with our newest members, Deputy Mayor Clark and Councilman Blumetti. We're very humbled to be in this position and support the council, support our management throughout the township and all the departments, and the citizens of this town that make up our town. We're very excited to work with everybody in the new year. If you need something, please reach out to us. We're a 24/7 facility. I think you know that. In reference to our new dispatch center, we're very excited. Today is the first day that it's been up and running. Everything went smoothly. We do invite anybody who wants to come down and take a look at it. Please let us know. We'll give you a tour. And anybody who hasn't seen our facility on council, please come down. We'll give you a tour of the whole police department. We take a lot of pride in our police department. It's a second home for us. We're there a lot. And just welcome. Thank you. Look forward to serving you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I would echo that as well. If you haven't seen it, it's a spiffy new command center downstairs, dispatch center. It looks like you're on the bridge of the Enterprise. It is a very cool place. So please, it's something that the town should be very proud of. It's a state-of-the-art facility. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
I am Vivian Perlmutter from Morgan Drive. First of all, I want to second what Sally Larson asked for the live stream. I still think it's absolutely most important. The other thing is, I don't know if it's legal to do it, but I would like, you were talking about the last meeting about the technology committee. If you could explore the township accepting electronic payments from the bank for taxes, the water bill, and the solid waste. I set it each time on my bank site, and then they have to mail a check. They have to have a paper check made up and send it, or else I have to write a check and bring it over. But most of my bills I send electronically. It's not, I can't say it's state-of-the-art because it's very old technology at this point. And unless there's a law against it, I would love to see, because then you don't have that many pieces of paper to deal with. It just comes right on in. It's almost like Zelle. Thank you.
Thank you. So just before, or you can go if you want, but I'll comment on that, and I'll ask the acting town manager to build on my comments. Through our website, you can pay electronically with a debit, with an ACH, automatic transfer, or a credit card for water bills and for the disposal, I believe. For tax bills, I haven't tried that yet. I don't know if tax bills are also available. There's an extra charge. For credit card charges, and actually for ACH as well, I believe, yes.
To explain an extra charge, basically the extra charge is there because obviously the credit card companies don't do it for free, and we shouldn't burden the other taxpayers to make it more convenient for somebody else to pay their taxes.
Yep. Yeah, so there are bill pay you can set up from the bank. I'm not familiar with that application. I've never, yeah. So I'm not familiar with that because I don't use it myself. Okay. So do we support electronic bill pay from the bank?
We receive the checks, and most of them usually will do the checks. People would basically have to have a direct connection with Lakeland because our banking goes through Lakeland.
I see.
You can put in a routing number or a checking number or a savings number?
I'm not 100% sure exactly how they do that. Some of that stuff is secure information, so you don't necessarily want to throw your routing number and account number out there either.
Right. I guess I've never tried to use electronic bill pay through the bank site, but yeah, I'm going to look and try to do it myself and see if I can stumble across something. Thank you, Vivian.
Good evening, Anand Dash. I wanted to just remind the council on a suggestion that I think actually Mayor Chiarella had brought up last year with respect to notice of generally important, any important legislation or event that comes before the council or the planning board or zoning board or any other matter that's of importance. Here's kind of where I'm going. So because of certain important issues like the warehouse, right, a lot more people have been engaged. Prior to that, and we often hear that full and fair notice of various agenda items have been provided through the statutory requirements, right? So in other words, we satisfy the requirements through posting in a local newspaper, on the bulletin board, and on the town's website. That is fine because it meets the strict letter of the law. But what that doesn't do necessarily, it doesn't apprise common folk, right, who may not have access to internet, who are not coming to the bulletin board here in Town Hall, and who are not receiving, for instance, 200 feet notice in the context of a land use matter or a planning board matter. One particular example of that, well, let's just take the warehouse, for example, right? A lot of folks may or may not have even known about it. So when we say we have had a fair and full opportunity, nothing was done in the dark, That's true. Nothing was done intentionally in the dark. There was no intentional cover per se. But as a municipality, we have to first meet the strict letter of the law, the state law or county law. But we can also go above and beyond the minimum requirements. I think Mayor and I had a conversation a year ago about maybe sending a notice to people's phones. Not on every issue. It might become too cumbersome on every little issue to send notice, but on maybe at the council's discretion on certain matters that rise to a certain threshold of importance that would affect a large member of the town. At least we can give folks an opportunity, even if it's a text through the Honeywell system or whatever the system is that has replaced that now, to give folks an opportunity to come and present. So the other example is the planning board had an application about the residential development in the center of town. Now, we've all known for many years that the municipal land use law requires notice of such developments to 200 feet of any property owners. The problem, and I've always thought about this, for years, the only people who really find out about that are property owners within 200 feet of the Burger King, right? And who is that? Wells Fargo Bank. It's the dry cleaners and whoever's in there. And then when we appear before the planning board and we say, wait a minute, why is this application being approved? We didn't have an opportunity to appear and object. The response we get is, what do you mean you didn't have an opportunity? It was a full and fair hearing. You received notice. Well, no, we didn't receive notice. We only started learning about it through the involvement of various public interest groups that started posting agendas and so on and so forth. So yes, are the agendas available? Yes, they are available. They are available for those who want to take a proactive approach. But for those who may be more laid back, but who are busy with their families, busy with their children, and their daily lives, but may still be interested in certain town matters. Not in every matter, right? The population dwindles as over the course of the year as less important matters come in. But I just think we need to, as a town, go above and beyond the statutory requirements. Just one suggestion, it doesn't have to be through a text message, but we're also glued to our phones, right? Unfortunately. And that's the one suggestion that would give folks a meaningful opportunity other than the strict notice that's required by law. So something to consider for the council.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. If I may, I'll offer, and I agree with you completely. I've spoken about this myself several times. I'll offer you specifically 3 points that I've jotted down for myself. Number one is that I would like to make sure that our agenda is set earlier. And to that end, I've already spoken with our acting town manager that I want to start meeting, we said on Tuesdays, to make sure that by Friday we have the agenda buttoned down and able to be shared at some point on or after Friday. Number two, I would like to also start a practice of having an open discussion of certain things that rise to that threshold of importance. One of those things I had planned was having an agenda item, so this would appear in the agenda, that we would have a specific discussion focused on a certain topic that I think would be helpful to get community input from. One of those things would be what kind of measures or policies could we adopt to increase our transparency. One of the things we talked about at the last meeting, which I will suggest later on today, is the Economic Development Committee, how that might be restructured, getting some input from the community on ideas of what the scope of such a restructuring of the committee might look like. And among those transparency discussions, I do agree that having an opt-in email notification might be a good idea. So backing up from that, if the agenda is set far enough in advance, we have time to be able to send that note out maybe before the weekend, maybe shortly thereafter. We haven't obviously worked out the logistics, but I think all of those things will allay some of the things you spoke of.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We've also had discussions about sending meeting notifications out through Rave General, because what is important to somebody may not be perceived as important to somebody else. So I don't think anyone can really sit in judgment of something that meets the threshold. But we agreed that we were going to relook at that right after the dispatch center got done, which it just did because it goes through our emergency alert system. of just having an option for people that want to receive a notification and say, hey, here's the, I want to know about meetings. Okay, great. Here's the meeting schedule for this month, so people can go out and look at the agenda, and then they can deem for themselves, by looking at the agendas, what they think meets their threshold of importance. So we did have that conversation last year, so now that dispatch we just heard is done, we can revisit that as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think another option, and one I've seen, and obviously there would be some cost considerations, but some townships have apps, right? And we're all familiar with various apps. Where an app, basically in one location, would have everything you need, and you could set the preferences. For example, if your area of interest is always planning board, zoning board, you can opt in and get notices of that same way, when a text message comes in that notifies you, or probably more applicable is, someone liked your post on Facebook and you all of a sudden get a notice all over your phone. There are apps that, townships use for that purpose. Obviously, there's costs involved in that, and we'd have to look into that. But that's one way where the technology is consistent with the way that the people use it, and something that they're familiar with. And now we're just inundated with emails, and the problem with too many notices is that you turn that off, right? You're like, oh, I get so many, I just ignore it. And but I think, as Mayor Chiarello said, I think this kind of ties into the transparency discussion that he wants to lead, and I'm looking forward to getting the townsfolk's ideas. There's probably folks who who have probably more an IT computer background that could also encourage you, if you have friends, tell them about this and encourage them to come and provide their input. But thank you.
Good evening, Kathy Abbott-Cowliston, 25 Scudder's Road. Just a request tonight, as an individual who's participated in streaming over the last bit of the year, last year, I would like to ask that you all speak directly into the microphone. It seems like a minor request, but some in the room are not able to hear for various reasons, and especially on the streaming, if you're not speaking directly into the microphone, I've noticed some council members over the last year are more able to be heard than others, and some sidebar conversations are happening, and it's really hard to pick up on the streaming. So I would just like to put that request out there and ask that each of you point the microphones directly to your mouths and speak directly into them. Thank you.
Thank you. It's hard to have big. I was a college radio DJ, so I'm used to talking directly to the microphone like this. But it's easy to lean back and have a conversation if you're comfortable having a conversation. And as you probably see, you're probably having a hard time picking me up right now. So it's hard. I think maybe we should look into longer microphones, maybe. Good. Thank you. And actually, before Anna, can you state your address, please? I think you failed to state your address when you introduced yourself before the board. Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Dave Smith, Sparta. First, I'd like to congratulate you three gentlemen. I'm sure you're going to do a fine job. I've been listening in. I'm obviously still interested in the township. I listened to a lot of the reorg meeting, and I read the Tap Into article. And one thing stood out to me that upset me a little bit, and that came from you, Mr. Clark. It's my understanding you stepped down from the SRD last year because you decided to run. You felt that was a conflict of interest. Is that correct?
I don't know if conflict of interest is the correct word, but I thought that my attentions would be diverted toward the campaign, and I thought in the best interest of both SRD and the campaign that I should do that.
That's fair enough. And when you got your petitions, you also did the same thing with the Board of Elections, I believe, with the county. Then you went and instituted a lawsuit against the zoning and the planning boards. However, you didn't feel that was a conflict even after you were elected. Now that you're elected, now you're able to use the SRD money to sue the township, and you're able to use the township to defend yourself against the SRD. That also, I guess, we don't feel is a conflict. Now you're deputy mayor, and you feel you're not in conflict even when advised by council. I understand you were advised by council not to abstain from planning board and zoning board people. You've demonstrated now that you feel that you know more than the town attorneys, and continued with the appointments. You have a suit against the planning board, so I guess it makes sense to put your people on the planning board, and you don't feel that's a conflict. But What concerned me was you proceeded to the zoning board where you replaced 2 seasoned members with your 2. One who is totally clueless about zoning, even the infrastructure of the town. Made ridiculous statement about it would take an enormous amount of fire companies to fight a fire in an empty warehouse. Again, you felt no conflict of interest, even though he has no qualifications. However, he did pay for most of your campaign ads in the Sparta Independence. So maybe...
That is not true.
That is true. It was stated on the ads. I have all the ads at home. It says paid for by, and it has his name.
Those were not our campaigns.
Oh, they weren't paid for you? They weren't your names in there for a campaign?
We had nothing to do with those
I didn't say they
campaigns.
had anything to do with it. I said they were there for...
You said they were our campaigns. That would mean that we had something to do with it. They weren't our campaigns. We had nothing to do with them.
All right. So you felt so he ended up on the zoning board. What I don't understand, though, is you also mentioned in the article that you were trying to get your name off of the lawsuit, but you couldn't get it off in time. Why would you take your name off of a lawsuit that you thoroughly believed in? That made no sense unless it was a conflict of interest. I just have a real problem with this going back and forth, but I'm going to let your constituents figure out if there's any conflicts of interest here and what type of deputy mayor you will be. But I will be watching. Thank you.
Well, I think if the gentleman would, I'm trying to get to understand your point, which is, could you identify me the financial and or personal conflict? I failed to hear it in your soliloquy. And if you would read the law, that's what it says. And it's my legal analysis that there is none. And again, if you would look at what the statute says, which is you're asking me to take away something that the voters elected me to do, which was to appoint people to the planning board. Based off of one application, there's going to be a lot of applications before the planning board, most of which will not involve diamond chip. And also, those members of the planning board who you as mayor appointed, I think when you appointed them, you believed that they had agency, meaning they could make up their own mind. And they will make decisions based on the law, based on the facts, and based on their own training. They will not base it on one vote of 5 people. And so you can have your point of view. Mr. Ryan can have his. But I also can make an independent judgment of myself. And I'm glad you'll be watching. I hope others will too. Right? I hope everyone comes in here and scrutinizes everyone here. Because that's what democracy demands of us. And it doesn't mean all the time that the people up here will agree with you, but we will listen to you. And I hear your point, but I will not abrogate my responsibility to these townspeople who voted for me to step away from it. And the fact that I took time away from SRD is not an admission that there's a conflict under the law. No, that's simply my own independent judgment. And yes, the voters can decide for themselves. And they will, and they have. Thank you.
Barbara Gomes, Links Court. I hate coming up to the microphone. I really do.
We like you coming to the microphone.
I just hate it. I'm sorry.
I like everybody coming to the
all
microphone.
People, I just hate coming up here. But I do feel like there's a couple things that needed to be clarified, probably well before tonight. I'm the vice president of Sparta Responsible Development. I've been able to work with the community since the founding of the charitable project. Sparta Responsible Development is your community. It's your constituents. The charitable money that is donated goes to the Highlands Coalition directly. I don't touch money. No one has touched money. Only I know who the donors are because I am the designated person for New Jersey Highlands Coalition. So I want to clear up any conflict that you think anybody might have here. I'm just helping to organize my neighbors who want to do a good thing for their community and who want to support each other. It's an amazing thing that one person asked a question at a meeting and the rest of the town stood up and said, what can I do because I agree with you? And that's where we're at here. We have approached this from the beginning, that we were trying to educate each other, inform each other, help each other through the biggest township I would say crisis, but challenge in our lifetime here. And I just want to let you know that everything is, we're fiscally sponsored by the Highlands Coalition. There's no expenses. Everything is a donation, and it goes directly to help pay for experts that we need to come in who are independent of the applicant to give expert advice and to help all of us. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Okay. Seeing no one, there will be a time at the end if you think of something between now and then as well. Will the Deputy Mayor please make a motion to approve the expenditures dated December 27th, 2022? So you will make a motion to approve those expenditures,
Sure.
if you may.
Make a motion that we approve the expenditures identified under the bill list total by fund dated December 27th, 2022, for a grand total of $5,651,666.11.
May I have a second, please?
I have two questions.
Sure. Actually, I think we need to second a motion before we vote on it, before there's any discussion of a motion. So if you would like, I would before we have any discussion, we need a second.
So you're seconding the motion?
It doesn't mean you're in favor of it. It doesn't mean we're going to pass it. It just means that you're bringing the motion to discussion.
Okay, I'll second it.
Thank you. Open to discussion for anybody?
Yes, so I have two questions on two of them, and I want to preface it by saying these are my process of trying to learn more. Anyone who's been to council meetings for the last 3 or 4 years knows that I like to ask a lot of questions. It's nothing personal, and it's not any other reasons. So with that being said, I'm not questioning the dollar amount because they're both relatively small, but I just would like to understand more about how we operate. So the first one, it's actually on the second item on page 1, if you have it in front of you. It is a reimbursement for electricity to 5 West Shore Trail, and it's reimbursement for $520.66. So I just would like to understand better the situation or the history of this. I remember hearing about this property in the past in some way, but I don't understand. Are we reimbursing whom? Is that our property?
This actually went to Jersey Central Power. We actually paid, I believe, them. If not, we were reimbursing the actual property owner. This was the final payment because, as you know, utility bills are usually a month behind. So this was actually the November payment, which we were still renting the facility at that time, or leasing the facility.
So is that, we own the property or somebody else?
No, we
We're
rented
leasing the property.
I'm sorry.
We were leasing the property. We've leased the property for approximately.
It's a 3-year lease, I believe.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years, something like that.
A 3-year lease.
Mr. Close was here when the lease was put in place.
In my understanding, we are no longer leasing that property, right? And this
That's
is just a
correct.
bill for the time period for when we were leasing it.
Yes.
And so we don't expect future
The lease was
electric bills.
terminated in December. This, unfortunately, like I say, utilities bills are always like a month in arrears, so.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Second question is, again, is not the dollar amount. I'm just curious, there's a bill to a landscaper for snow removal for North Village, $375. Again, not questioning it at all in terms of the amount. I'm just curious, so I can understand better why our DPW doesn't do North Village or part of North Village, or can you help
This could
understand
have
that?
been possibly like part of the parks or something like that. I'd have to check with Mr. Zepp to actually see what the actual
I don't
bills
think
were.
we had taken the roads over yet. I think they were paying the snow bill, but we hadn't actually taken the roads over
Yeah,
yet.
it could have been. We just actually have started to take the roads over within the last couple of months.
Okay.
Mr. Hack has been going through and actually making sure that everything is up to standards before we actually take acceptance of the roads.
Okay, so in that case, we pay a landscaper to,
My
Yes.
assumption is it's a liability. We don't want our trucks out there doing it when it's not our road, so.
okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any more questions about the expenditures? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstain? All right, the expenditures are approved. There are no ordinances to be introduced. Try to get that microphone in position. There are no ordinances up for a hearing. We will next vote on a collection of resolutions. However, before we do so, I will open it up to the public for any comment or question on any of the resolutions that are up for consideration. Seeing no one, may I have a motion to accept the resolutions? What are they?
Mr. Mayor, can we carve out 913 and 914?
913 and 914, out of a total of 16. And I think I myself had a question about 2 of them. So why don't we start with a question about 9-13?
Sure. So my question again is, just so I understand, this is a resolution for professional services for a health services consultant for almost $40,000 a year. I know I've seen this in the past from attending meetings. Can you just help me understand which specific services does the healthcare consultant provide for Sparta?
Sam, I'll explain this. So when we realized what was brought to our attention from our senior community, that they weren't getting the proper health services that they deserved and that were required because we farm it out to the county, we started a negotiation with the county and had basically made the decision that we were going to pull out of county health services and create our own health department so we could better care for the residents. Unfortunately, while we were in discussion with them and they, were promising us that they were going to try and revamp it and make it right, they had taken what was a charge for a service and put it into the general tax. That way, if we decided to do that, we would have ended up double taxing the taxpayer by paying for a health department and giving them the money that we were giving them anyway. Right? So this was a consultant that we brought in to make sure that we're always vetting the health care and the health services that we're getting from the county to make sure that the residents are getting what are owed to them. So they continue to be kind of our health rep, since we don't have anyone really standing up for our residents that know enough about how that industry works and what services are required. So that's what this consultant does.
Is that consultant, I guess, familiar with whatever enforcement mechanisms would exist? If the county is not providing what they said they're going to provide, it's his job to figure out how he can get the county to provide what they say they're going to provide?
Just a bit of the consultant's resume as well. He is a retired health officer, been in the Division of Health probably for better part of 50 years.
And he was an acting town manager for Sparta at one point.
He was, and he's also been a retired township manager for other municipalities. Wealth of knowledge. He's been working with us now probably 9 to 10 years. I mean, coming in with just help out. He's always great. If you need a call to have a question, managerial or health related, he's always got an answer for you.
He was also critical in our
COVID
efforts
response.
around COVID. We had meetings with him, the mayor and I, weekly with the manager, and that went on for a period of over 2.5 years. He was integral in relaying information. He has amazing credentials. The other thing is, as we have outsourced our health services, we used to have a health department here. Although we outsource the services, we have to have our own, quote, health department here. Health board here. So that is what the mayor and I sat on for several years now. Steve, who is the consultant here in 913, in addition to all the other things that he was helping us with, in even addition to making sure that we're getting the right services, there's also a slew of reporting that comes out every month with regard to all the different inspections that go on from the county, whether it be septics, restaurants, beaches, you name it. There's a lot of information there. And we meet with Steve. Steve is the one that goes through every single report, every single word of it. We all do as well. And then Steve brings all the concerns forward and makes sure that everything is clarified. And in addition to that, he also attends the monthly meetings
Yes. And
with the county.
He actually makes sure that the county is giving us what we pay for.
Thank you for that explanation, Councilwoman Flynn and Town Manager Rome. Thank you.
Okay, do you have any questions about 9-14 as well?
Yes, 914 is authorizing that we are in compliance with a Equal Employment Opportunity Commission decision under Title VII of Civil Rights Act. And as I read the resolution, it's asking us to vote to say that we agree or we know that the town's in compliance. So I just wanted to ask the acting town manager if you can confirm that our township's hiring practices are in fact in compliance with that enforcement guidelines?
Yes, sir. We are a civil service town, so basically we have to comply as well with all the guidelines of the civil service, which will all fall into these categories.
And if I could just interject, on this particular representation, the council is confirming that indeed Sparta Township is complying with the limitations placed upon use of criminal records and criminal history in the hiring process. So in other words, our job applications do not contain questions any longer with regard to criminal history, and the initial interviews do not have any inquiries with regard to criminal history, except where it is permitted under the EEOC guidelines, which has to do with law enforcement. But in a subsequent interview, if a contingent offer of employment is made, at that point an inquiry can be made. So the process is in compliance, to the best of my knowledge, with indeed the EEOC hiring guidelines.
Okay. Thank you both very much.
Anyone else have any other questions about any other of the resolutions? Okay, I have a question about 9-11. This is the authorization for the purchase of propane for the township. In the first whereas clause, the period goes retroactive to 2020, so we are in the middle of a 5-year contract from June 2020 to May 2025. So why is this coming up now?
This is actually the approval to buy it through the co-op pricing. So again, the co-ops get us better pricing because it's purchased in bulk.
So our purchase agreement, we're in the middle of a 5-year purchase agreement, but each year we can, so we purchase on demand through the co-op?
Basically, each year you renew it through the co-op who is offering the best price of the product.
So the contract doesn't have a price, a fixed price on it. We buy it at the market according to the co-op or what the co-op offers?
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, I have no other questions. Before we vote, does anybody want to carve out any resolution to have a separate vote, or are we comfortable voting on everything all together?
I don't need to carve out anything, but I will take this opportunity to thank Mr. Rome for, I spoke to you and helped give me really good clarification on, what these various purchasing organizations do, and, assured me that, the purpose of these is so we can get a better price and try to save the taxpayers money, and that we do have the ability for some of these to go outside the cooperative if he thinks that we can get a better price elsewhere.
Yes, yes.
And
as long as
so
we can prove that we are getting a better price, and, the vendor meets all of the guidelines for regulations and stuff like that, we could always use that. But basically, the more co-ops we're in, the better, because it gives us a wider window of where we can get the best pricing for the taxpayers.
Okay. Having said all that, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-16?
I move that we approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-16.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Those resolutions have passed. I'll ask for council liaison updates. Are there any council liaison updates, starting with Councilwoman Quinn?
Yes, the seniors are meeting on the 18th for their first meeting of the year, so very excited about that. All other meetings will be scheduled by the end of, hopefully by the end of January,
Except EDC.
except EDC.
Excellent.
Committees that I'm on.
Okay. Councilman Hertzberg, any updates?
Nope.
Councilman Blumetti, any updates?
Yes, the first Environmental Commission meeting of this year will be on Thursday, January 12th at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Clark?
No, I don't have any updates.
Okay. I have one update, or actually two updates for the Cultural Affairs Committee. First off, we did procure a commemorative bench that we will dedicate in the spring to former committee member Bernice Verwis. We haven't set a date for the dedication yet, but when it is, I'll let everybody know. And secondly, I have actually a question about the committee was planning their summer concert series. The concert series is held every year on a Friday between school out and school in, so end of June to beginning of September timeframe. The committee was given 2 dates, 2 weekends for which they were required to host the event on a Saturday. That posed some problems for the committee, and in that the expenses are much higher on the weekend, on the Saturday, and there are other encumbrances that they need to have to account for. I don't know if I see a member of the committee here. Neil, did you want to expound on that further, or if you may? I don't want to shine the spotlight on you if you don't want it, but thank you for your help.
It's we've had this long-running Friday night concert series that's been quite successful, and we've been using the same sound and lighting company for quite a good price. It's come out to about half of the price of any other bids we put out. We've had 8 shows throughout the summer, and if we move them to Saturday, that's going to be a significant increase in his price because he's been locked in for Friday nights, and Friday nights are easier for both the sound company and the artists because Saturday's a busier night, so we get better deals and better programming on Fridays. So we cut it short or try to move outside of the school year or go into the school year. Whether that raises difficulty getting the Mohawk Avenue School, which we need for in case of inclement weather, I don't know what those implications are, but those are the main reasons. And also that people expect it. We raise significant donations through each concert, averaging $200 to $400 through passing hat. So.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Do we know why those dates were moved to a Saturday? Are you familiar with that or aware of that?
Movies in the park?
I believe that might have been one of the reasons, although I don't think it was specifically explained. Okay. Okay. So I think, I don't know if we were able to address this right now in the room, but I will take that offline and see if we can get maybe some flexibility or an explanation. So, thank you.
Say it's a significant increase. Did I hear you say that it was $200 to $400? Or
No, it's over 1,000, I believe.
so how much would it go? How much does it go up on a Saturday? Okay, so maybe we could just get a couple more pieces of information around it, like why was it moved? Is there another venue that you could use on a Friday night? Or, I think we just need a little more information before we can, but we should definitely look at that. We just need, I think, a couple more pieces of the puzzle.
Okay. Other than that, I have no other council liaison updates. Old business, I'll start with Councilman Blumini. There should be very little old business. Actually, we did have some old business. Again, I'm sorry. I shouldn't beat you.
I believe this falls under old business. So at the reorganization meeting, we talked about planning board appointments, and we had to pause and put off appointments, I believe, for 3 additional.
That's correct. Yeah, at the time, we were wondering whether or not there were 3 individuals for which it was contended that the planning board had made some changes to their appointment, and we determined that that was not the case. So there's still 1 open Class 4 position and 2 open alternative positions.
So I would think tonight, I mean, if we've confirmed that tonight we should fill those.
Okay.
So.
Does anyone want to make a motion to appoint the Class 4 member?
If we were going to do that, that should have been communicated to us so we were prepared, first of all. And second of all, which ones are you talking about on the planning board?
Okay, we did say that we were going to look into this and make a decision today, so that's what we're doing. The Class 4 opening, there was an opening, I believe it was for Drew Reyna, who retired or resigned at the end of his term in December. And it was incorrect that I believe it was Joe Toscano was elevated from an alternate to a regular Class 4 member. That is not one of the functions allowed by the planning board. So Joe had remained an alternative, and Joe's term had expired at the end of December. And the other person whose term expired at the end of December was Jerry Murphy.
I don't see Ernie Reichstad's name on this list.
I believe Ernie Reichstad is in the middle of a current.
He is in the middle of a current term, but he's not on this list. So.
He's Mr. Healy's spot, is that correct?
No, he just got appointed last year.
He's
filling Dan Healy's spot, I believe. But Healy had some time left on his term.
I'm bringing up that he's not on this list. So we need to just
possible.
update the list so that we have a complete list. I'm bringing out just a factual point. I'm not trying to debate it. I'm just saying, pointing out that if we want the list to be accurate, we need to add Ernie Reichstad's name to it.
I'm sorry, which list is that? I don't know.
The planning board positions, this one right here that we got.
In the agenda?
This one that I got. So,
I think that was from last meeting's agenda.
Yeah, but I don't believe he would be on there if he's not up for reappointment. I think he's
I have all the people on it, on my list. So I'm just saying, I'm just bringing up a point of fact. His name needs to be on there.
So personally, I still feel it is important the planning board does meet next week, and it would be, I think it would be incumbent on us to make sure that they start the year as quickly as possible with a fully constituted board. So do we have a motion to appoint a Class 4 member?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jeanette Burke as a Class 4 member.
Is there a second?
I second the motion that we appoint Jeanette Burke for a Class 4 member to the planning board.
Any discussion?
I have a discussion point around that, and it's nothing to do with Jeanette Burke. It has to do with the fact that in reviewing the application, I see that she's a realtor, and I've always felt strongly that I think that if you're a realtor, it puts the realtor in a bad position to be on the planning board, and I think it also puts the planning board sometimes in an awkward position. I think it's not good for either, because you do become aware of a lot of information on the planning board that people that are in that industry normally would not be aware of. And I think it puts the realtor in a very compromising position. And I think it also puts planning board in a compromising position. So my concern around that has always been the same. I've always felt strongly about that. It's nothing personal. It's just I feel it's not good for the applicant and, for Jeanette Burke. And I just think I don't think it's a good fit I see problems with it, and I don't want to put any volunteer in that position.
I don't think conflicts are a concern right now.
Let me ask our council, would Jeanette Burke in her position on planning board have access to information that's not already publicly, or wouldn't be publicly available?
I wouldn't know the answer to that question. It'd have to be pretty fact specific. I don't know.
So a planning board application that would be examined and voted on by Jeanette Burke, aren't those public records?
Well, I mean, generally they are, but certainly there could be, executive discussions on legal advice that you would be privy to.
Yeah. Those are all fair points.
Well, at least for me, I'm having a hard time distinguishing. So there's been people on the planning board who have been members of engineering consulting companies. And so I would think that they would be in almost, if that's the position, then I would think people who had served for engineering consulting companies would be privy to a lot of the same information that they could use for a variety of financial reasons. And so if we're going to go down that road, we have to do it consistently. And I don't see where a realtor stands in any kind of different position than someone who is formerly of an engineering company. Because as we know, most of these developers, when they file an application, they do have their own engineering company. They're privy to a lot of information. And so if that's a concern, then I think you're going to have to start carving out positions and be very clear. As far as I know, there's not that. There's no ordinance that says it. There's no right now that says if you hold the following positions, you will not be allowed to be on planning board. It's sometimes up to the discretion of the individual member if they think so. For example, if someone has a lot of clients, an architect that has a lot of clients in Sparta, they typically will not, try to sit on planning board. Now, if they have a lot of clients in Camden, New Jersey, where there's very unlikely that they're going to have one of their clients before a Sparta planning or zoning board, then the conflict doesn't present itself. But I would just, before we start carving out certain things, let's be clear that there have been people on that planning board who work for engineering companies who that engineering company represents an applicant or maybe a future applicant. So let's just, just putting that out there. Thank you.
Well, I'm putting it out there that when we have to look out for the best interests of our volunteers as well, and many of which don't maybe realize what they're going to be facing when they get on these boards. So, that is my opinion, and I'm voicing it because I just want to always make sure that we're being mindful of people that are volunteering on these boards. So
I still don't understand why these alternates weren't moved up into those positions like they're supposed to be.
Well, I can explain that unless, one, if you look at, it says the appointing authority is town council. The appointing authority is not planning board. And
I didn't ask about the authority, but
planning
board should have elevated
I know
the
you don't
alternates.
think you asked that, but you did ask it. You just don't understand what the
I
law
know what I
is.
was asking.
Well, maybe you don't understand the law. What the law says is class 4, if you read the statute says the appointing authority. You look at the definition, what's the appointing authority? It's town council, and that's who appoints, not planning board. If you were to move those people up into a position and basically abrogate the town council out of it, you would be in derogation of the statute, and so that's why we're the appointed authority. We're the ones that
I
appoint them.
understand that. I know you think you can read people's minds and you're going to tell them what they're thinking, but the alternates have always been the people that have moved up into open positions, always.
Well, if that's the case, then they've always been done wrong because the planning board does not have the
I'm not
authority.
saying that. I'm saying the
The
council
planning board
should-
does not have the authority to change the membership's appointment. So
We're not talking about changing the
It doesn't matter.
you are absolutely talking about the changing. If the council appointed an alternate member, the planning board cannot change that appointment to be a full member. That is not one of the actions afforded to the planning board under our statutes.
I would go back to one last comment on Jeanette Burke, is that I understand some of the concerns Councilwoman raised. I think I trust her also that if she applied to be a volunteer for the community and selected that the planning board was her, whatever, first choice or second choice, I don't recall, that she probably has an understanding of what's at stake, and she can make that decision on a case-by-case basis, like all of us would have to do, and abstain from a certain application if need be.
And she would also have agency to, if she discovers that this is not a fair position for her, that she could obviously step down from that position. Is there any other discussion on the appointment of Jeanette Burke for the Class 4 nominee?
I have comments on appointments in general, because I do want to bring up again, and I know that there are different opinions about this, but I want to go on record again as saying I do not agree with this council of 5 knowing that there are significant risks down the road, voting all 5 members to appoint anybody to anything. And I think something that the general public may not be aware of also, in addition to basic land use laws and basic ethics that are associated, I don't profess to know all of them, but I have been here for a little while. So I think we need to be very mindful of the fact that lawsuits cost money. The other thing is the people that we put on these boards, okay, they select who the attorneys are going to be that represents that board. Currently, right now, one member of this board is in direct litigation with both the planning board and the zoning board, which means, and you can laugh, and that's hilarious, until we have to find, you're not from Sparta, so it's not going to affect you when Sparta gets hit with a bill. So what I'm saying is the people on these boards are going to select council that represents Sparta Township. As of right now, today, this lawsuit, these professionals that are in place right now have successfully defended Sparta Township. That's our job here. That original document or that litigation was dismissed by Judge Minkowitz. Now it is in the appeal process. So what you're saying is people that you're appointing to these boards are going to be picking the attorneys representing Sparta Township and these boards. And you're suing the boards. So you're basically, you have boards of people that could vote out the representation right now that has successfully defended Sparta Township. So to sit and say that there are no, effects of impropriety here is almost outrageous. So again, everyone's entitled to their own opinions. We are. I'm going on record again as saying I do not think this is in the best interest of the township moving forward. So Roxanne, please have the record reflect that I see serious risks with this. I don't think this is good government, and I think that we are putting the township at significant risk.
Excellent. Any other discussion before we vote on the appointment?
Well, I'll just, what you've described is really just a defense that an applicant could make if the planning board denies an application. Now, if the planning board denies an application, they are going to have a whole host of possible defenses, right? And a lot of those will have absolutely nothing to do with whether that planning board was appointed by some certain town council member. People who practice in land use law will tell you there's a lot of things that you have to do to get a application denied, and it's not like the town will get sued over one particular, this is just simply a defense. The town will get sued if it denies an application of this magnitude. That's just a given. And one of the defenses may or may not be that the appointment of some of those planning board members were by someone who had litigation against that. But I will tell you that will probably go very far down in the brief. What will be, first and foremost, will be the facts and the law and how the planning board applied those, and whether their application of those were arbitrary and capricious. So I don't want anyone to come away to think that there's a separate private right of action based on proposed conflict or bias, because there's not. It's simply a defense to the denial of an application.
That's not true.
No,
Can you please let him speak?
and so it is true.
It's not.
It is. You can't have a private right of action based on that. What you will have is maybe an argument, but if everyone knows, it's not going to surprise anyone. If the planning board denies the application that we're speaking about, there will be a lawsuit.
I'm not speaking about that application at all. Any application, any applicant, any resident, any member of the boards, anybody can bring litigation against us for this decision. This has absolutely nothing to do, let me be just really clear here, nothing to do with one application. It's much bigger than that. And again, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but I want to go on record again because now we're dealing with appointing more people, and I disagree with this course of action. So, again, you guys can make your own decisions. We all can. But I don't think it's in the best interest of just going along with it without continually saying anything about it.
All right, I'll close the discussion, and can we proceed to a roll call vote, please, for the appointment of Jeanette Burke to the Class 4 position on the planning board?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I'm going to continue to abstain on these.
I'm abstaining as well.
Okay, that motion is passed. May I have a motion to nominate one or both alternates for the planning board?
I would like to nominate for alternate 1.
Actually, let me stop you there. I think, as I read our statutes, it is the mayor that decides the order, but the council will appoint the appointments. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, what was
The way I read our ordinances is that while the council will appoint the alternates, the nomination or the designation of alternate 1 versus alternate 2 is a mayoral decision?
I don't recall that, but it does not.
Okay.
I don't have anything inconsistent.
I can look that up in a couple of clicks if you like, but.
What are you deciding?
Who's first and who's
Who's first and second is according to our bylaws, is a mayoral appointment.
Are you looking at the same 2 names, or are you doing different names?
We haven't named anybody yet, I believe.
So why don't you just call for appointment 1?
Because, as I said, according to our statutes, the council names the 2 alternates, and the designation of who is 1 and who is 2 is a mayoral designation. So can I have I think, so you want to proceed with a motion to nominate 2 alternates, please?
Yep.
So I move that we alternate Joe Toscano as alternate 1 and Jerry Murphy as alternate 2.
Second?
Second. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
No.
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 Yes.
Yes.
That motion has failed. May I have a motion to nominate 2 other alternates?
I'd like to nominate Bill Enright as alternate 1 and Justin Canellis as alternate 2.
May I have a second, please?
I second that motion.
And before, any discussion on that? Okay, I am reading from our ordinance, paragraph 18-3.2A1. Alternate members, there may be 2 alternate members appointed by the town council as class 4 members, and they shall meet the qualifications of the class 4 members. Alternate members shall be designated at the time of the appointment by the mayor as alternate 1 and alternate 2. Okay, any other discussion on the nomination of the 2 aforementioned alternates? I believe they were Justin Canellis and Bill Enright.
Well, then should we rephrase the motion so that they're not numbered 1 and 2? Does it matter?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll amend the motion that we nominate as the alternates Bill Enright and Justin Canellis.
May I have a second, please?
I second the motion.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
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 Abstain.
Abstain.
That motion is passed, and I will name Justin Canellis as the first alternate and Bill Enright as the second. Okay, I think Councilman Blumetti, are there any other old business that you'd like to bring up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Clark, old business.
No.
Councilman Hertzberg, any old business?
Nope.
Councilwoman Quinn, any old business?
Yeah, I do have old business. So for people, every year we do a drive to get people to sign up for our RAVE system. It's very important. It's the way that we communicate in emergencies. We've had this system. It started out as, you may have heard it called Honeywell, but now we've switched it to RAVE. So if you have not yet had a chance to go out and enter your information, please go out and do so. Again, it's the way that we communicate with people. It is opt-in, so you're not automatically enrolled in it. And also, I know that the schools had a Honeywell system. We explain this every year, but we cannot utilize the school's data. So if you do have children in the school system and you have signed up in Honeywell, please make sure that you sign up in RAVE as well. And also, I want to thank the DPW also and the township staff for their support also of the reverse advent calendar. Those items were also collected and brought to the local food pantry, and I'm really excited about starting this new tradition. I think it really benefits the community. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any new business? I'll start with Councilwoman Quinn.
New business from my side?
Yes, please.
I think that if we're going to keep talking about transparency, then we also need to be transparent if we're going to be leaders on this board of being transparent with the board as well. So if we're going to come in here and make recommendations and be talking about boards, we deserve the respect to be able to know so that we can come here prepared. And, that's something that I think we need to be mindful of. We are a board of 5 people. We all hold the exact same power, or whatever you want to call it on this. There's none higher than the other. And if we're going to talk about transparency to the community, then it should start here. Everyone was afforded that, and it shouldn't, we shouldn't be looking at this right now blindsided again. These things are things that we should be willing to, come prepared for discussion. They weren't on the agenda. I would think if we're going to be talking about something as significant as placing board members, we certainly wouldn't hide that in old business. I would certainly think that that would be an agenda item like all the placements were last week. So moving forward, I'm really hoping that we have much more transparency amongst this board. That's it for me with new business.
Before I move on, I'll make a comment on that. One is that at the last council meeting on Thursday, we did note that we will revisit the planning board nominations at this time, after having clarified the status of the appointments that were called into question on Thursday.
Did you update the whole council on that?
I did so in public session, yes, we all talked about it together.
Update the council on your findings.
I believe the attorney did send an email to about the clarification of the.
No.
I got an email from you today. Oh, you just sent it to me?
Usually the mayor is the one that disseminates information to the council.
Okay. I didn't notice that, and that probably just came this morning. But in any case, we did say that we were going to have this discussion today. Secondly, I believe even the last meeting, in fact, the last couple of appointments to the planning board occurred during new or old business. So that's not a new practice.
When we're talking about reorg.
The reorg meeting was Thursday. Right.
The point is, if we're carrying over items from reorg, they should be noticed on the agenda.
Okay. I didn't put the agenda together, actually, so we'd have to speak with the clerk and the acting town manager.
If we knew we were going to be talking about it, clearly you guys knew you were going to be talking about it, so it should be transparent to everybody.
Okay, noted. Councilman Hertzberg for new business?
Nope.
Deputy Mayor Clark for any new business?
No.
Councilman Blumetti?
Yeah, so this probably goes down as one of the worst segues from the last conversation we had. So I am concerned, again, the agenda was put together on, I forget when it was, Friday. So this is, I guess, an odd week. So this item is not on the agenda, but I am concerned that about the resolution that was passed in December 9-21 about the resolution to authorize deer hunting on township-owned property. Let me preface it by saying I'm not anti-hunting. I have multiple immediate family members that are hunters. I don't myself, but that's fine. And this is not my concern is not a yes or a no. Do we have too many deer? Do we not have too many deer? Are they causing problems? This is not a judgment on that. I am concerned that the resolution as it's written is not detailed enough. It wasn't fact-driven or data-driven. And what I'd like to discuss is that we pause, whether we reverse, I'm not sure what the legal part of it is, we reverse the resolution, whatever we do, because right now it is hunting season still and will be for the next, I think, 4 weeks or 6 weeks. And that every day permits can be going out for hunting to happen on township property. So my concern is that my preference is that we have a discussion about that now in the open, and we look at ways to stop that for now, and then approach it the right way. Look what other towns are doing. Look at what the state can offer us in terms of data, and approach. If there's a deer problem, then in fact there is. If there is, approach that with a more methodological way to.
But the state is the one that sets how many permits can be given in a certain area. The state is the one that sets all of that based on their data.
Well, I think that the permits are coming out of the police department, right?
No. The police department is allowing certain people in certain areas. All permits come through the state.
The state.
All permits come through the state based on the area that they're going to be hunting.
Do we know if this is a data-driven decision, though? Did the state come into Sparta and say this is going to help control the deer population?
These places are all, that's why they do this. That's why they give a certain amount of permits. That's why they allow a certain amount of deer per person. They've already done that homework. They have the data.
But I don't think that's specific to these properties.
No, it is.
They've done it with bear, I mean,
It's the whole state is covered by these sectors.
But do we know how detailed are the sectors? So where are the properties in Sparta, and how detailed were they looked at? I still can't tell somebody, is it near my house?
You know, on a state map, they have the whole state is sectored out. The places that allow more permits, I think we're in the 75th percentile because of the deer population up here.
Mm-hmm.
They decide that based on their data. So if there's an area in Sparta, they won't allow permits there if they don't think it should be there. You still have to go to the state and get your permit.
I understand that, but the permits are not specific
Yes.
to properties in Sparta, right?
Well, deer move. They don't, I mean, they can't tell you where the deer are going to be on a certain day.
Right. No, I'm
So
not
there's
saying that.
zones, and they do their studies based on their zones. Every property in Sparta is in one of those zones.
But how detailed are the zones? Like to what?
What do you mean, how detailed?
Is a zone cover 1 acre? Is a zone cover all of Sparta? Like how much is Sparta?
Grids, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the acreage is, but they're bigger grids.
Mm-hmm.
I want to also say this is a past practice, so this was suspended, but this was done in the past. And with the governor bringing back the bear hunt as well, and the fact that former Chief Spitaletto did say that in 1 year, last year, there were 91 deer car crashes just in Sparta Township. The other reason that, another reason anyway why I supported this was a lot of hunters right now are going out. The hunters that are going out are getting their meat for the winter time. We've got an overabundance, and it's clearly from the statistics that Chief Spitaletto gave us, it's causing a problem. We had the same issue with the bears to the point where the governor reversed that decision as well. So this is not something that we're doing for the first time. The other thing is I do believe, and we can go back and check the record, but the other thing that we did was we made it conditional upon the fact that obviously we had proper posting of all of the zones. These zones aren't in people's, so to say, backyard. They're, again, they are not something that we decide. Then we also, so that was one of the conditions of passing it, Because that obviously, and I think you have to do that by law anyway, obviously, post everything.
All those concerns are dealt with by state agencies.
Right.
That's their job.
So those were not listed in the ordinance in the resolution that we passed. And in fact, on number 3, it says the permit must be obtained from the Sparta Township Police Chief, not from the
Not a
state.
hunting permit. That's a permit from the town, just so they know exactly who's going out.
Right.
Yeah,
Right now, I'll tell
I
you
think
right
that's
now,
what we're
people out
talking
there on these properties, and we have no idea who they
That's
are.
one of the big problems we have.
They go get their permit from the state, and we don't know who's where. At
Right,
least
and they're
one of
hunting
the-
illegally because up until last week
No,
or
it's
last
not
month.
legal, but it's still happening because not everybody knows exactly where all
Okay.
the property lines are.
Right, so one of the concerns as we raised was that, these zones, so we don't know which lots in Sparta these apply to, because there is a formula that might tell us that this lot applies, but we haven't identified those lots as having been applied or not. We haven't applied that formula to our lots. We haven't notified the people that abut the property that abuts those lots that now you will have hunters on that property. I think for some of the reasons that Councilman Blumetti mentioned, that this was done in haste, and I would like to back up as well. I was feeling to back up and roll this out in a more methodical way.
Yeah, my understanding was that it was property owned by the township that were now going to be open to hunting, that heretofore had not been open to hunting. I think the issue to me, it seems, is what can we assure ourselves that those parcels are suitable for hunting based upon the guidelines that the state has set down. I understand Mr. Councilman Hertzberg says, well, if they issue a permit, that then means that particular parcel is suitable for hunting. If he's right about that, then okay, but I'm not clear if that's the case. I think the issue has to do not with the need, yes, with, as I said before, victim of 2 deer car crashes in the past year. More than happy to get rid of the deer. I think it's the issue of location. And are we sure that the locations that we have chosen are ones suitable for hunting?
Suitable how?
Suitable in that they meet whatever the criteria that the state sets for, if you're going to do hunting, it has to meet the following parameters. And this particular parcels of land owned by Sparta fit those. As far as I know, there hasn't been that type of determination.
Anytime you apply for a permit to hunt, the rules all apply to you. Away from housing by a certain amount of feet. All of that is in there, no matter where.
And do we know which lots that applies to
It
here?
applies to everywhere.
No,
It applies
no,
to
which
anywhere-
lots meet that criteria? That's one of the points that we haven't held that criteria against the available open lots that are owned by the township to say, according to this criteria, these lots here apply. This part over here, this part of town over here, this part of town over here. And another one of those concerns is that if I'm a neighbor if I own property that's against that lot, I would like to be given some notification that says my kids shouldn't be playing in that lot next door because starting December or starting whenever, there's going to be hunting allowed there. I think that's something that we need to make sure that we notify the residents, especially the people that abut those properties.
I think that's what we said when we passed it.
That was not in the resolution.
We were going to post the properties and make them available.
That wasn't in the resolution either.
So,
Okay, so I think we've identified parts of the resolution that were missing that we believe should be here. I believe I had a conversation with Attorney Ryan, who also mentioned to me that the state offers a free deer assessment or deer control assessment that we can avail ourselves of.
They do.
Okay, I think that should be part of the calculus as well. And then having studied the issue and identified the lots that meet the criteria set forth by the state, and then maybe some of those lots, after we apply that criteria, we say, something, even though the state says we're allowed to hunt here, maybe we carve some things out. Maybe we bring the neighbors, the people that abut those properties, to come in and get their opinions over here. We did that when we purchased the lot at in Eagle's Nest. We bought the neighborhood here to say, okay, so this is something we're doing. What concerns do you have? How do we work together to make sure that we allay your concerns and make it right for everybody? That's the type of rigor I'd like to see applied to this. So I would like to make a motion that we,
Do you want to draft a motion and put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
I think that's a good idea. The concern we have is up until then, we are issuing permits. So can we maybe pause the permitting process until we have a resolution that will clear things up?
Well, it certainly could give that consensus to manage,
Okay.
right? So don't know what's occurring at this time.
But
Well, may I make one suggestion?
Sure.
Which is, listen, I don't want to stop people who want to hunt, right? And so is there a way, though, if when you're issuing the permit, letting them know that whatever these parcels are, for right now, don't hunt there. They can still hunt in the areas that are allowed, but because my understanding is we're not, instead of doing a blanket, don't issue hunting permits, why don't we just carve out those areas of concern? And so when they apply for the permit, we're going to say, hey, listen, here's where you can hunt in Sparta, and make sure you're not hunting in whatever those parcels are, as opposed to just putting a blanket moratorium on issuing permits, because I don't want to stop people in the middle of hunting season if they're allowable.
That's a fair point.
We also
Just
are only
clarify, we're talking about municipally
township
owned property.
Yes, I mean, just whatever those parcels are talking about, when we issue that permit, it says, here's your permit, do not hunt, and then we put the particular lot and plots that we're talking about, so they know not to go there, but they can go wherever hunting is allowed within the township. Otherwise, you're going to do a blanket moratorium, not issue permits, and people are going to be denied the right to hunt where they otherwise would be allowed to. And I think that would be kind of overkill.
Basically, the ruling party of all of this is New Jersey Fish and Game and Wildlife. Somewheres within our resolution, there should be a reference to everything meets the guidelines and the laws within the New Jersey Fish, Game, and Wildlife. Basically, one of the things that's in there that no hunter, whether it's your property, whether it's somebody else's property, nobody is allowed to hunt within 450 feet of any dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be within our resolution as well, that number one, that we, all hunters must comply to New Jersey Fish and Wildlife rules. That's the rule in the front of the book. So, again, that's something that should be out there. If you take 450 feet from any dwelling, any roadway, anything like that, it cuts the property down considerably. So basically, let's say if you're afraid somebody's going to go out and hunt at White Lake, physically they can't do it with the constraints of the property.
So you apply that formula to the collection of lots that the township owns, and out will pop half a dozen, whatever, pick your number, lots.
If we've got a lot, maybe a couple hundred acres up on top of Edison Mountain, and somebody wants to go up there and hunt, and we're away from the structure, okay, let them go up there and
Perfect.
hunt.
So let's use that as an example. If we apply this formula to the collection of lots that we own, and out pops 5 lots, and one of them is the Edison Mountain lot that you just mentioned.
And that's something basically that, either the town engineer or planner or somebody that can draw the maps out could easily.
Yes, I think we should have that rigor. And I would go a step further to say, I would notify the people that own property against that lot to say, if you start hearing gunfire, this is why, because we just voted to approve hunting in that lot next to
In
you.
making the maps for these with the overlays of where you can hunt, where you cannot hunt, they also could very easily be passed out by the PD if they're going to be the issuing party. Give the person a map.
Sure. I think we should even post it on the perimeter of the property that this hunting is now here. I don't want some family whose children play in the empty lot next door that now is available for hunting to be surprised that I'm hearing gunfire now.
Yes.
Do we know what the distance from roadways is? Is it the same, or is it different than 450 feet?
I believe it's all pretty much 450 feet, at least on major roadways, but,
Again, that's a
That's something
regulation of the state.
yeah.
Fish and Game.
Yeah, I mean, we can clarify that. I mean, obviously,
The state
if you're going to
says
do it, you're going to put it together. We'll get a hold of the fishing, game, wildlife rules and make sure that we mirror that language within our regulations.
Yeah, I would emphasize that as a township, we have the ability to limit it just because the state Fish and Wildlife folks thinks that, it's law and it's okay to do it elsewhere. When you're talking about a residential town, I think we're definitely afforded the right to, be a little more selective around our roadways, especially small streets. And besides dwellings, I know dwellings is a law, but we could be a little more selective. But we need to. We're a residential town. We're not a hunting, playground.
And we did that up until December, right? So we did exercise that ability to govern our own town that way. Okay. What I heard was that we'll examine this and come up with a resolution maybe at the next meeting, but at a future meeting we'll have a resolution to maybe sharpen this a little bit. Is that a fair assessment of what I just heard?
Sorry,
or does somebody want to make a motion to perform some action at this time?
So you're stating that we leave it as is for the next number of weeks?
I'm trying to summarize what I heard, and what I heard was that there was some desire to sharpen this and provide more clarity, and that we should bring an amendment, another resolution at a future meeting that will provide a little bit more guidance here. But if there's any other action, I'm entertaining that right now.
Most of your hunting seasons will be over within the next month.
I think middle of February, most of them, yeah.
Do you have a number of permits that were issued by the Sparta Police?
To my knowledge, none, but I would have to check with the chief to make sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that before we move on? Councilman Mayor, any other new business?
No, none.
Thank you. Did I ask Deputy Mayor Clark if you had new business?
I can't remember if you did, but I don't.
Okay. I have a number of things that I'll go through. First of all, we did nominate 2 alternate members of the zoning board the last meeting, Megan Struble and Celeste Luciano. I have spoken to Megan Struble, and her employer does not encourage participation in such boards, and so Megan Struble will have to decline the invitation. So I'm expecting that Megan will reply unfavorably to the invitation that the clerk had put out to her. The other person is Celeste Luciano, and I believe Celeste is here with us. I don't want to speak for. I was going to speak for Celeste, but I don't have to now since you're here. Did you have something? I don't want to shine a spotlight on it if you don't want to, but. Okay. So that will leave us with, and thank you for, and again, I apologize for calling you out in front of everybody. I did that twice. I did that with Neil too. So that will leave us, and again, I believe we have to formally wait for those written decisions to come in. So I don't think we can take action at this time, but when they do, that we'll have 2 more zoning board appointments to make. So I also, I don't know if we have any more that have submitted applications. So we should, I would like to welcome everybody to submit an application for zoning board if you're interested in that position.
And these are alternate positions, so that
These are
the zoning
alternate
board
positions.
would still be able to meet, even though these
still
are
have a quorum.
unfilled at the time. Is that right?
That's correct. Thank you. I have a number of other new business items. One is that unfinished from last session, we did vote to perform a water study. And the next step was to bring in our water engineer, Phil Spaulding, to speak to some of the issues concerning the pump stations at Germany Flats. Do you want to check with Phil if he's amenable to meet with us in a council meeting to give an update for us?
Yes, I'd probably be Phil and Mr. Hack both.
Sure. And that can be at a later time in a future meeting. Ordinance, next item is Ordinance 22-14 was a weight restriction on North Shore Trail. We had discussed that we would rescind that ordinance because it was conflicting with another part of our township ordinances. So we should expect an ordinance to rescind that coming up.
We can do that. Would you like us to prepare an ordinance to rescind?
Yes, please.
To rescind.
Ordinance 22-14. So the 22-14 had only one action on it, and that was to set the weight restriction on North Shore Trail to 8 tons. However, we pointed out in a subsequent meeting that there was an existing weight restriction of North Shore Trail further down in our ordinances. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but there was a 4-ton restriction on not only North Shore Trail, but nearly every road in the Lake Mohawk Country Club area. And so having found that inconsistent, I believe we concluded that we would remove that 8-ton restriction and issue a new ordinance to rescind 22-14. So look for that in a future meeting. Next new item of new business, ordinance 22-17. We had voted against that was the salt shed ordinance. And I think the next step was, I think we all agreed that we do need a salt shed, and more discussion was needed. And so I'd like to start having that discussion. So I think you mentioned that, Sam, that you would introduce, reintroduce the ordinance and then have Mr. Zepp come and speak with us a little bit if he's amenable.
We'll do that at the next or last meeting of the month. I'll have the bonding attorney redo the ordinance, so it'll have to be the numbers and stuff changed, the ordinance numbers and dates and everything.
Okay.
And have that ready. There are also, along with each ordinance, just as a reminder, there'll be corresponding resolutions that actually allow us to establish a capital budget for the.
That makes sense.
Amend the capital budget for the for the ordinance that's going in place.
Yep. Thank you. Question on procedure for the our council. Typically, when we introduce an ordinance, there's no discussion of the merits of that ordinance. Can we bring in Jim Zepp to discuss the salt shed at the same time that we are introducing the ordinance?
Yeah, you may want to bring him in before an ordinance is introduced.
Okay. Can we do that at the same time, or do we have to wait?
Then we can determine what type of ordinance we want to introduce and what type of details to put into it.
Okay. So maybe we the next step would be to bring in Jim Zepp, which would be at the following meeting on the 20 whatever. And then the meeting after that, which I believe is like the 13th of February, we'll introduce the.
And like I say, in connection with that, I'll also have Mr. Hack here. So
And Mr. Hack, yes.
He obviously has, this is actually done through a co-op, and it's going to be done by a company that builds the salt shed. So he's gone over all the specs and reviewed all the specs and everything else.
Excellent.
And actually, probably some of the work will end up being done by our own staff, to finish it out once they get the main part of the building erected.
Put the chrome plating on. Excellent. Thank you. Next piece of new business. I had mentioned last year, probably should be old business of this. I learned from the New Jersey League of Municipalities Convention that the ARP does offer a senior advisory committee age-friendly designation, and I think I shared that with Councilwoman Quinn and Councilman Hertzberg. If you can take that up with the senior council, maybe there's a questionnaire that comes with it, and I think you submit a questionnaire, and ARP will come back and say yes or no, you're not, and have this age-friendly designation. I think that'd be a nice little jewel for us if we could do that. Okay, next piece of new business. I would like, okay, so at the last meeting on last Thursday, we had tabled any nominations for the Economic Development Committee. So I would like to have on the agenda for the January 24th meeting an open discussion for changing the scope of the committee. Currently, the committee, I don't need to read it again. I read it into the record the last meeting. That the scope was sort of not in alignment with what the committee does right now. And so I'd like to have an open discussion, again, advertise that in advance, being on our agenda so the public can come with ideas, and we will collect them, and then from that offer a change to the scope of the committee, and then we will reconstitute it with new members. So I'd like to see that on the agenda for the next meeting. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I could see us having future discussions of gathering public feedback on different items. I think following that, they can open discussion from the public on changes we can do to further promote transparency, live streaming our meetings, having advance notice of the meeting agenda. Maybe there's other good ideas we haven't come across. So that'll be an agenda item so that people can come prepared with good ideas. We'll collect them and then from that develop a policy.
Sam, what's the status of the equipment that we ordered? My understanding was that equipment was on our, we'll talk about it after, for the streaming of the meetings.
Yeah, IT department is still working on it. I can, firm it up with them exactly. Unfortunately, most of a lot of this equipment anymore is so back-ordered so far. There's a lot of need to come in.
Right.
Maybe we could just piece it together before we get the goods. I know there's certain requirements for the equipment because this is used for court as well. So I know it wasn't so easy as just getting basic equipment, but we talked about that as well.
We can tape a GoPro right over the exit sign. All right, that concludes Council Liaison updates, old business and new business. I'd like to open it up to the public for any comments at all. I thought you hate coming to the microphone.
I totally do. So I just have a question.
Can you state your name and address,
sorry,
please? I'm sorry.
Barbara Gomes, Links Court.
Thank you.
How do you sign up for the rave system?
So if you go to the website and you go out to, I was just doing it actually before I mentioned it because I wanted to make sure that confirm the new name. If you go right out to the website and you click in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that there's it'll pull down menu will come up and you'll be able to sign up right from there.
Okay. So does it say anything in the upper right-hand corner, or it's just
It says the rave system.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to be clear because it used to be called Honeywell, but it was bought out by another company. So
right, and nobody will know.
So that's why I wanted to point it out.
And you said that you were doing I'm not exactly sure of the words that you used, but like an outreach to people, like how are you?
We've done it every year. We advertise this. We've had it for about, I would say about 8 years now, 8 or 9 years now, maybe.
We got it right after Mr. Close, so it's probably almost.
So we did huge, every year we mention it, but we also do big drives. We have posts all over that say, I know the police also do, to try to get people to engage. And it's also, I'm glad that you brought up another question because what I did not mention before was it is not just for residents, it's also for business owners. So business owners that want to stay in the loop, they may not live in Sparta, but they may want to be notified of, roads that are closed or issues that happen. And when you go into this system, you'll enter your information, and then you'll see that there are different levels, different topics that you can sign up for. So you really customize the entire thing, and it's rave, and it's spartanj.net right in the upper right-hand corner.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Sally Larson, 56 Mountain Spring Drive. I just signed up for the rave system. It's very easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for signing up. Please tell all your friends. It's really important that we get people signed up. Thank you.
Ordinance number if you want, because I saved it on my phone.
Can you state your name and address?
Oh, sure. Beth Broderick, 18 North Shore. I can send you the ordinance number if you want. But I just have a stupid question, and I'm not going to start a war, so please don't get mad. I heard a rumor about what's in 350 Sparta Avenue, and I was just looking for clarification. Is there any truth to the rumor that there's a residential drug and alcohol facility there within a drug-free school zone?
Yes, it's true.
Okay, I was just looking, when was that approved? I'm just looking, again,
I don't know.
I actually was going to speak to this also.
Oh, go for it. I was just asked. I'm just trying, because you know more than I do.
We both live near it. This is not the Tom Eisenberg, 128 Sussex Mills Road, Sparta. It's not the appropriate place here now, but At 350 Main Street, there's a guy that owns, his name is Mark. He owns a big complex there of apartments. I have a friend who just moved out of there. He kicked everyone out, and he's applying to make a, I don't know precisely, but some sort of rehab, sober living, halfway house kind of thing. And I think right now, I guess people on Tap Into, there you go, there's been announcements, the zoning board, that's why this may not be the proper place, although you guys can. No, I think I have the facts.
Thank you.
No, that's why I stepped up to
Thank you.
elaborate. You're welcome. That's why we're all
Appreciate
here.
it.
Yeah. And so I think right now, for the zoning board, he has an application for a variance to open this thing. It is a bad idea. The warehouse is one thing, rehab and halfway house is another bad thing.
Let me give you the history of why he's doing that.
Yes, please.
Because we discovered that he was operating in our neighborhoods. What we felt was illegal, the state vouched and said they changed the laws so that he was allowed to do that without notification, without any regulation, without any authorization from the town. So when I asked for a meeting through the senator with the state and pressed them and said, so you guys give him the authorization to violate our zoning laws? They backed up and they said, well, no. So we've already started proceedings to violate them through zoning for operating a business in residential areas. The process is taking a lot longer than the residents there would have liked, but it is chaos in these houses that are operating in these neighborhoods. And what the residents are going through is disgusting. And the state, they push it, they try and scare you into let them do it until you challenge them. But now what he's trying to do, because he knows there's gonna be fines over $1 million because you get to fine him all the way back to when he started these. Now he's looking for a new place to move them, and that's now where he's trying to go.
Interesting. I mean, he's operating sober living houses around town, and he wants to move them there, but he also wants to do rehab. And he has something there. See, I have a very good friend that just moved from there to Denville. She sort of held over for a while. The buildings are a mess. They got mice. The water is, the city or someone determined it was poison. So he may rehab it and make rehab in the building sense and make it better. But I agree. I mean, look, obviously drug addicts need help. And I think New Jersey has a great system. And I actually help a few personally, not get better, but just, commissary or toiletries or whatever in the halfway house. So, yeah, they need help. But Sparta, that's why I mentioned the warehouse, it's residential. It's a nice town. You really don't want people with criminal records. We don't want to be prejudiced per se, but there's other places for them to be. And, yeah, this is like half a block from my house, this place. Don't worry about it. Don't worry, now you listen and learn, right? Good. So, and Josh is helping us. So, I listen and learn. Thank you. He is actually operating some sort of, post-drug thing there. Now we see the guys hanging out. So it's safe to say then that you, Josh, and maybe others agree that we shouldn't have this in the town. We're going to fight to stop it, not give him the variance on the zoning board.
Let me back up. Yeah.
We fought them being in the residence because that's illegal based on our zoning.
Okay.
Right? You can only fight so much if they're in a business district running a business. What it sounds like is they're asking for variances because what they're doing doesn't fit in that business.
Correct.
So that's going to be a zoning issue. We really can't weigh in on the zoning. That's a separate statutory board, but I know they're aware of it. My understanding is the way it operates right now is they're not allowed to treat in the houses. So they bring all these people to that 350 and treat them there, do their meetings, do whatever they do, and then they go back to the houses. So they're shuttling back and forth from the homes to there. Now, if they know they have to close all these houses, that's probably why they're looking at redoing those apartments.
Right. He's trying to have like 3-bedroom apartments where, there's in the state, Integrity House, Kintock, there are all these programs that we know about. And in fact, I think another council member, we have a friend who actually runs something like this in Denville. It's just the wrong place for it, and I think in, you know, our nice little residential neighborhood. I'm nothing against the people, but you're going to get crime.
My
It's going to
concern
be a
is
problem.
more the operator, right? Because some operators, they come in with great intentions, they do a good service, and you wouldn't even know that they're there. Unfortunately, some of them, and I know this company actually operates in Delray Beach, Florida. I saw a video from their mayor pleading with other cities not to allow these kind of facilities in their city because of the way they operate. They don't do what they're supposed to do. They fleece these people, and they leave them on the streets. Now, I'm not saying that that's what this guy does. I don't know the way he operates his business, but that's the concern.
Well, that's one concern, that they operate correctly, but let's say he's going to operate nicely, but having, you know, rehab people living to the school, I'm sorry, my mind, I'm old, but Pope John, yeah, is a few blocks away. You can't, you just can't, it's a bad idea. Do you agree with that, Josh? It's just.
I agree with.
I don't care how they run
that
it.
Close to an elementary school is definitely a concern also. You know, again, I'm not against, I think those kind of facilities provide a needed service. I don't like that they already were breaking our laws to do it in town. That already makes me think that I don't trust them.
Right. No, that's good. All right. Well, I think whatever pull the council can have with the zoning committee or passing your own Sparta laws.
We can. You can.
We have nothing.
Right. Unfortunately, I know I'm going to be out of town and for a month or two and back and forth. I'm going to miss some of the interesting meetings, let's say. And I do want to say one thing. You know, there's, in a way, sometimes you guys are acrimonious, and that's just democracy, and you're talking past each other. But I think Josh, we don't know each other that well. We actually knew Mike Johnston in common, poor guy, you know, across the street from me. But Josh is in tune with the business in this town. I don't think he should be blanked out. I'm just speaking frankly. I know I know another person on the economic committee, and she says you guys haven't done much for a year or two. So there is that, and that's, I think, what's got you guys all excited. But I think Josh should be involved. He's in tune with the business, you know, the small business people like Steve Scrow. I bought my house from Steve Scrow. And so, you know, just try and be fair, you know, and bygones, whatever. You know, horses for courses. And I think Josh, certainly for the business, small business, is the man. I'm just saying, you know, quite honestly.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing it.
But whatever, can't the council pass a resolution, just like with the warehouse, only 175,000 square feet, can't you pass an ordinance, we're not going to have rehab houses in Sparta?
No, you can't. We looked into that. There's laws, like laws against it.
Really?
I mean, we can't discriminate
Yeah,
against
they have a right to
facilities
live
such as
somewhere.
that. They do have to comply with our local land use ordinances, and our code enforcement officers certainly can monitor to ensure that they're in compliance with our current zoning. But we cannot discriminate against a particular entity such as that.
Or class
But
of
again,
people.
they do have to comply with our local zoning ordinances as Joss has outlined.
Well, those buildings, from personal knowledge, are like way out of compliance right now, I think, in a lot of ways. So I guess.
They've been violated.
Right. So, yeah, keep on it. And maybe if he spends enough money, he'll get them clean. But there still is a problem that you brought up.
The concern I have is that it's.
Yeah. What do we do?
Well, you have.
So just like the warehouse,
sober
we
houses,
can't do
just,
anything with,
I think
with
we're
people
talking
who
about two different
criminal
things.
records running around.
Well, I think one issue is the issue that you've identified about the treatment center that will go through zoning, and zoning will do what zoning will do. I think an issue that I've heard is you know, there's sober houses, which is you're not getting treatment there. These are where people are going after they've been discharged from probably usually a 30-day treatment center. And those are going in residential neighborhoods, sort of, you know, it could be your neighbor. And so what is happening, and I do agree with Josh, that there's some bad actors in this space. I'm not saying this person is, but I think it's going to be really incumbent upon our zoning officials to look at the law and have them comply to the letter of it, because I know the state, it has pretty strict regulations on those sober houses, and it sets up a kind of ironic and contrary thing, which is these houses, these folks are coming in for 30 days and then they're leaving, right? And then the town of Sparta, so essentially it's sort of a group home, right? And that person who owns the home essentially is able to get revenue, having people come in, having people come out. Now their neighbor, if that neighbor wanted to do an Airbnb and sort of do the same principle, my understanding is they would not be able to do that, right? They would not be able, because we don't allow that in certain areas. And so that sets up, why are we allowing these places to effectively run like an Airbnb for sober, for people trying to recover, and we don't allow it for just other citizens. And I think that puts us in a position, and I think that, I agree with Josh here that we need to be careful to make sure the people that we have running these are of the highest integrity. And, I know that what happened in Montclair is essentially what sounds like what we're doing here, which is in Montclair, they were having these and they were running amok, and then they went after them for zoning violations and back, they were essentially running a commercial business in a residential area, not paying commercial taxes, et cetera, that enforcement, and then they basically ran them out of town. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue that this is somehow, animus toward the sober community. What this is trying to do is balance an issue of, hey, let's help, people who are in recovery here, but also balance the needs of the citizens and the residents who have come to move into these neighborhoods, that essentially you're allowing a business in a residential area. And so I think that, I think Sparta is on its way to, really not letting these places run amok, and also looking out for, the people in those residential neighborhoods and making sure the people who operate these aren't the bad actors, because this space is filled with bad actors and it's a highly, highly profitable business. If anyone's looking into this, the reason why they're popping up is because they make a ton of money. And if you go to places in, say, rural Kentucky right now, they are having towns of probably less than 10,000 residents. They have 18 sober and recovery houses in a town of 10,000 people. And why is that? Because the town has said, come on in. And they're shipping people from California. And this isn't not in the best interest of the town, but it's not in the best interest of the sober people, right? We need to make sure they are in the places that are being operated to the highest integrity and helping them recover, right? If all they're doing is running them through, collecting their money, then spitting them back out, and then coming back through the back door, which is what has happened in Florida, that's not good for the sober people, and it's not good for the town. And I know that, Sparta is going to be committed to trying to do what's best for the citizens and for our sober community.
So Sam, if you could just follow up with the prosecutor, he was supposed to be getting subpoenas together so that we could find out exactly how long each house would be operating, so we know how large the fine should be. So if you could just check on that. Our local prosecutor, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rick Finkel, 13 Hayward Road. I am not aware of this issue, so my concern is how many of these sober living houses are there?
There were 5. My understanding is there's now 4. They closed 1.
Okay. All right. Is there any notification like they do for sex offenders where you're
We had to
entitled to
find
know?
out on our own. They didn't notify us. They actually, the state allows them to come in, skip our process, and get their construction permits directly from the state.
There are many different kinds of homes as well, so you know what I mean? And a lot of this is done, we have absolutely no knowledge. The town is not notified whatsoever. And you would think, when these things are being done, how could you not? And again, sober living homes are not the only kind of group homes that we have in Sparta. And I just want to be clear too, we don't approve, we don't give approval, and there are HIPAA rules and laws and state rules and things that protect. And unfortunately, to the point of everything that was learned from this incident, it's quite shocking that the state can come in, and in all fairness, even if you are a good actor, the process isn't fair, because what happens is the state is giving out licenses that say, yes, you're fine to go, even if you're running a commercial business in a residential zone and breaking the law. So even though the state gives the good business owner gets something from the state that says, yes, you're good to go, it's directly in conflict. And I believe that the law was changed, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, to remove that verbiage out, that they did not have to do a comparison with the zone. There was also a case, I think it was 3 years ago in Morristown, where the exact same thing happened.
Basically,
and the judge there ruled that you could not, anything the state did could not over or supersede the ordinances that were in place with the township. And that's where the fines also were established.
Yeah, her point is they removed the
Sober living houses, those people they're trying, they've been through the program and all, and a rehab, there's like opposite. The rehab is people, they just got out of prison or jail, and they're there to get better, but they're.
No, I understand.
Well, they don't have to come out of jail or prison, but.
I have family in Del Rey, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, and I'm just against rehab and halfway houses in that neighborhood, A, because of my home, and B, Pope John and the kids and very
So they don't have to tell anyone that they're running these businesses, but it's my understanding it's illegal to run these businesses because it's a professional business in a residential area, right?
As long as you're zoned residential, but the state will even still try and tell you they can do it until you challenge
Tell you
them.
about
Because
it. Yeah.
that's why they took the language out. They wanted you, even as a township, for us to think that they're allowed to do that. But until you corner them and challenge them, then they admit it. And it took court cases with case law to prove it.
Okay, thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Yep.
Also, check out the garbage at that site. It's like all over the place. So if there's ordinances with garbage disposal, keeping things clean.
I read this morning that, in Tap Into, that there's a hearing on that tomorrow for the zoning board, and then I went to the township site for the agenda for the zoning board, and it said it was postponed. Do you know whether it's been postponed or it's going to be tomorrow night, the discussion on this facility at 350 Sparta Avenue?
I have no knowledge of that. Does anybody know if the...
I know I looked up the agenda for zoning board, but didn't see one. So I haven't, I've yet to see an agenda.
It had an agenda this morning, and it said postponed. And yet Jenny had it in Tap Into that it was being held tomorrow.
It's possible that it will be postponed because the zoning board needs to have the reorganization meeting, but maybe they already had it. I'm not in tune with what the zoning board had done this month.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Oh, well. Right. But we should be there anyway to make sure to let them know not. See, from what I gather, speaking with people involved with this, is that our zoning prohibits it in that area because of the school and because of the zone. And that's why they're asking for a variance. So it means that we have to have a large share of people from the town out there raising hell that we don't want them to change give them a variance. As it is, our zoning law is good, but we shouldn't allow a variance. Is that the way it is?
Well, I don't want to speak to that point as you stated it, but I will say that this gets into our discussion of transparency in that if there is an impactful, whether or not it's an application or an ordinance change or a resolution, that we should provide advance notice that the public can attend if there's a meeting that's going to discuss that. And so if there's a meeting tomorrow to discuss a zoning ordinance that people want to be, people might be interested in, that should be disseminated. I'm sorry, you had something to say?
I just wanted to
I just pulled it up. It is tomorrow night at 7, and they are doing a reorg, and then the 350 property that you're talking about is on.
So it is on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
I think she might be talking about planning being canceled.
Yeah, planning was canceled.
Because I had seen that before in the agenda.
The planning board was canceled last week, right? Right, but not next week. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to contribute? All right, seeing nobody, may I have a motion to adjourn for the evening?
Motion?
May I have a second?
I second the motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you. And thanks for coming, everybody.